Gurmila Mahagat, Laska Herlig, Rory. I want to raise a couple of items today in relation to the census. I heard, I think it was Senator Malcolm Byrne refer to people as Muppets, those who would obstruct the work of the census or make life difficult for census enumerators, and I certainly would have no sympathy with any such obstructive tactics by people. But I do feel it important to say that part of the democratic contract, if you like, that between us all and that binds us to the state, is that in return for our compliance, we can expect fairness, accuracy, transparency, accountability and adherence to high standards. And just returning briefly to the question of the assignation of sex, where the website, where the Central Statistic Office website says that if you're uncomfortable ticking one of the options, male or female, that you can mark both boxes, and for analytical purposes then there'll be a sex assigned at random. You know, bearing in mind that normally the supplying of false information is subject to a very serious fine, the idea of a website telling people that if you're uncomfortable with this or that aspect of the process, you may do something that otherwise would actually come under the heading of supplying false information. I think regardless of what one thinks about the debate about so-called transgender rights, and that's a term that can mean different things to different people, it can't be right that people would be asked to supply false information if they're uncomfortable about answering correctly. You know, if I feel uncomfortable about answering some other section of the census, am I entitled to answer it incorrectly? That's an example of the sloppiness. It's a decline in the standard of accountability, fairness, accuracy, respect for process that we see in different areas in these times. I've had extreme difficulty getting the Minister for Health and the Department of Health to answer a basic question. And as an elected representative, you know, when I write a letter to the Minister for Health, to Geraldine Luddy in the department, to the people involved in the 3-year review of abortion, for example, as I have done, asking about whether people can supply information in a free-form manner other than the prescribed template, and whether their issue will be considered. You know, when I don't even get an answer to that letter, you know, when the policy of the Minister for Health is just to ignore anything coming from pro-life people as though they don't matter, what you're seeing is a decline, a small bit of death for democracy. Because everybody should matter equally in this state. And people's elected representatives, when they ask questions, they deserve to get answers. And I have seen very bad standards from the Department of Health in recent times. And I don't think it's a forced linkage to say that this, what we're seeing for the census, is an example of the same kind of sloppiness. There's the census form, and I just finish with this, is considered to be a notice for the purpose of the Act, and the sections require that the notice must specify a date by which the information in the form has to be returned. But it's been pointed out to me that the census form doesn't actually specify this date. Again, you know, the form referring multiple times to census night, but bizarrely not specifying a date. What's going on here? On a strict and extreme reading of the Statistics Act, that could potentially invalidate the entire census. So again, is this more sloppiness coming from the system? And finally, the complaints from Irish speakers, which tend to arise during every census, Alaska Hirlig, where Irish speakers don't feel they're being given an opportunity either to answer the census in Irish or to converse with enumerators in Irish. That is something that simply has to be addressed. We can't expect, I'll finish on this time, we can't expect all 5,000 of the census enumerators to be able to provide service through Irish. But there has to be a mechanism provided for Irish speakers if we're serious about what we say about the Irish language.